Today, we are back at the Gilmore Auto Museum located in Hickory Corners, Michigan, to go all the way back to automotive genesis to look at this 1885 Benz Patent motor wagon. But before we take the tour, welcome to What It's Like. This channel, we feature the classics, vintage, some exotics, lots of orphan cars, and cars that are off the beaten path. If that sounds like a channel that you'd be interested in watching, subscribe. Also, hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Picture this, a world without cars. 1880s world. Modes of transportation were walking, the horse. I want to stop right there. Many people don't realize how much waste one horse produces, let alone a whole city full of horses. The streets were covered in horse poop. People were walking in it. It was everywhere. It was worse in big cities. I just wanted to paint that picture that there's horse feces in the streets, and then people track the feces from the streets into the showrooms and storefronts and then to their houses and stuff. It was probably a mess. I just wanted to paint a picture of that because not a lot of people realize that horses crap. They crap all the time, and it was probably a huge mess for everybody involved, not just the people that were riding the horses, but also the people that were walking in the street who were stepping in horse poop every day. Other forms of transportation were the steam train. The steam train was the fastest way to get far distances on the same continent. Steamship, fastest way to get across the ponds like the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, or what have you. There's two forms of transportation that I left out, the bicycle and the tricycle. They had pedal power in the late 1800s. Our car that is featured today is a motorized tricycle. Let's talk Benz Patent motor wagon. It's widely regarded as the world's first practical automobile. It was built in 1885 and unveiled and patented in 1886. Let's talk engine. The engine was a 58.2 cubic inch displacement, single cylinder, 1 liter, produced 2/3 horsepower at 250 RPMs. The engine weighs 220 pounds alone. It uses an open crankcase and it used a drop oiling system. Interesting fact. The first version didn't use a carburetor, but a basin of soaked fibers that was supplied to the cylinder by evaporation. Used a side valve, 2 valves per cylinder. Bore was 3.54 inches, stroke was 5.91 inches, compression ratio of 2.7 to 1, 2 crankshaft bearings. The ignition system was a trembler coil ignition type system, also used a single speed transmission. Moving on to some motor wagon specs. It was considered a motor tricycle. It was rear engined. Price was 600 Imperial German marks, which would be equivalent to you spending $4,524 in 2022. Wheelbase is 57.1 inches. It is 106.3 inches long, 55.1 inches wide, 57.1 inches tall. It weighs 584 pounds. They were produced from 1886 all the way up to 1893, with 25 being built during that time period. The max top speed that they ever got one of these up to was 10 miles per hour, and that was with the third version, and it had a 2 horsepower engine. Here it is. This is Genesis. This is automotive Genesis. And yes, it is very primitive, but it's also very well thought out, all things considered. Notice you have a padded seat, not just like a church pew seat. I think this has to do with the steering system, but it also looks like it could be a hand throttle. I'm not entirely sure. If you know what it is, in the comment section below, but it almost looks like it does both, like multifunction, because I'm not sure where one would steer it other than using the tiller system. Notice the body is made mostly of wood, all the areas in which you would touch. The other oddity that I've noticed about this particular motor wagon is notice there is a sprocket on both ends of the axle, both left and right sides. Generally, there's only one sprocket with one chain. So I don't know if they're different, because it said that it's only a 1-speed transmission. So one would think that, you couldn't have two size sprockets on different wheels. It probably wouldn't work. Also, the engine is belt driven. So just check out how all that works. It has a gas fuel filter bowl at the very top. Very first, even Genesis had the glass bowl. But just notice the wheels. They're almost like Amish buggy wheels, just with a little tiny layer of tire. All right, moving on to the pros and cons section. I couldn't find any pros and cons for this, so I basically just made up my own. On the positive side, it will look like nothing else on the road. And they're virtually priceless because there's only 25 real ones. I'm not entirely sure how many are left. Lots of replicas out there. Against it, oh, as we're coming around, you can see this side also has the sprocket and chain. The cons, or against it, it's more of a curiosity than an actual practical everyday car nowadays. Like, yes, it was Genesis. It worked for a little while back then, but it doesn't have a cab. It doesn't have a windshield. It doesn't go very fast. It has a total loss oil system where it just drips until the oil is completely gone, and then you have to replace it, and it just drips everywhere. Also, one more con, it's a very foreign startup system than what anybody is used to. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a shorter episode, so there should be another episode coming later on today, but don't hold me to it. I have a lot going on today. These are all done in real time as well, if anybody ever wondered. But until next time, toodaloo!